Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Shahab Karni from the studio of Television I-95. As promised and as we announced that we will be doing a segment on the race for the governor in the state of Maryland. So I was looking and I was searching for who can be a most appropriate person to comment on all those things, and I found Barry. Barry. Barry has been very active on his blog and on social media about the politics in the state of Maryland and especially in the governor's race. So welcome, Barry, to my studio.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
All right. So I already pre-introduced, the topic or the theme of this morning. What are you seeing at this time? I mean, we are almost like 11 months, if I'm not mistaken, 11 months away from the primary. It's your take. What do you see?
All right. The Republican side is in some very serious problems. Okay. At this point, they've got Delegate Dan Cox, who you have to understand something about Dan. He sued Governor Hogan 3 different times. He doesn't play by the Republican hymn book. And he's seen as the pro-Trump candidate in the race, the most pro-Trump candidate in the race. Robin Ficker is also running. Robin was the world's greatest sports heckler for many years. He'd go to basketball games and yell terrible things at the players until finally the NBA cracked down and he got his season tickets moved. Robin was elected for 1 term in 1978, and he lost his seat in 1982. And you have to keep something in mind. Those were Reagan years. He lost in a Reagan during the Reagan presidency. He's run for many, many offices since then, and he's never been able to win. He has had success at ballot initiatives and self-promotion, and he's all over the state, shaking hands, taking pictures, kissing babies, anything he could do. It doesn't look like he can win. Secretary Kelly Schulz has served in 2 different positions in the Hogan administration. She's currently in Governor Hogan's cabinet. She's the choice of the mainstream Republican Party. She's in trouble because she has not been a Trump cheerleader. And it's believed that the hardcore Trump voters are going to be most likely to get to the polls on primary election day. That favors Dan Cox. Secretary Kelly Schulz has got to come out and find some way to move voters to the voting place on election day. And frankly, a lot of people are saying, what's the use? It's not going to be a Republican this time. She has to galvanize the Republican Party if she wants a chance. Now, Dirk Hare, the state chairman, is supporting her. And if he wants her to be governor, he has to do a massive get out the vote campaign so that she gets more votes than Dan Cox. Dan's big hope is that if he can say things so outrageous that former President Trump endorses him, that would be a big deal. There's also people who are trying to draft Michael Steele. Michael Steele was lieutenant governor previously. He was national chairman of the Republican Party. He's been on the talking head shows on TV, on cable news for a long time. If he wins the primary, there doesn't seem to be a path to victory for him. He has to get past he was never Trump, and he was publicly never Trump. So consequently, the Trump people are not going to support him. Given a choice between Dan Steele or Dan Cox or former Lieutenant Governor Steele, they're going to go for Cox. So that means he's going to be fighting Secretary Kelly Schulz for the moderate, mainstream country club Republicans.
Excellent. Excellent analysis. Now, Barry, on that question, while we are still talking about the Republican
Yes.
candidates, I mean, if you remember, um, not according to the traditions, Larry Hogan as governor endorsed big time Al Redmer when he was running for Baltimore County executive. My question to you, Kelly Schultz being a cabinet officer, has Governor Hogan shown any kind of support to her as we speak?
He's in an awkward situation. He can't show a lot of support for her because the Trump people don't like him, because twice he publicly did not vote for Donald Trump. Consequently, here's something important to remember. When we look at the national Trump approval ratings, for the whole term, they were between 36% and 43%. There's a hardcore voter who says, we want to stick it to those people being people like me or you, or people who, normal people. I hate to put it that way, but, the mainstream Republican Party is not their cup of tea. They're basically saying Trump won. The election was stolen. There are child sex farms on the dark side of the moon. I mean, they've got all these crazy stories that they.
Yeah, all the conspiracy theories. Yeah.
Yeah. Governor Hogan can't do much because everything he does to help Kelly will also hurt Kelly.
Okay. Point very well taken. So now, just for the sake of information, let our audience know how many on the Democratic side, how many people so far as we speak are running for this slot.
Oh, I think it's 9.
9 by now. Okay.
I'd have to count. I made a list of them. I've got it right here on my phone, but I think it's 9.
Okay.
There's a handful of
credible. Let's talk about
ones.
that. What do you think as of today, August 2nd, right?
We have an interesting situation. We have some people who have not been major players in Maryland politics who are running. We have 3 people who have been players in Maryland politics. First of all, Peter Franchot has been the comptroller for, I think, the last 16 years. He's a huge vote getter. He's gotten more votes than anybody else in a state election. He got a head start. He's been building for this for years. He built a strong organization. And then about a year ago, his deputy comptroller, his number 2 guy, Lynn Foxwell, got himself in a jam, and Peter was forced to ask for his resignation. That may have slowed things down a little bit, but Peter has overcome that. He's put key people in there, and he's ready for the fight. Some people look at Peter and think he's an old white guy. Well, okay, but he's been a progressive for a lot of years. And when you look at his administration as comptroller, he has 2 deputy comptrollers. The first one is Emmanuel Welsh, who just happens to be one of the highest ranked Philippine-American people in the United States, highly respected. He didn't come here until he was 10 years old. He was adopted by a man named Welsh because his mother married him. So they came over here, they reestablished. He's a Pacific Islander, and that's key. Also, the person, the deputy comptroller in charge of the day-to-day functioning, tax collecting, technical aspects of the operation is Sharon Bernardi, who is an African-American woman attorney. Great credentials. They aren't tokens. They aren't there because they, to make Peter look good. They're there because they're incredibly good. I've worked for other departments of revenue across the country. I'm just finishing up a project with South Carolina's Department of Revenue, which is the equivalent of the comptroller's office. Peter's office is considered one of the very best in the country. Now, he doesn't always make people happy on the state level, because when he thinks that the Annapolis machine, the bosses, the Senate president, the Speaker of the House, when he thinks they're wrong, he says so. And he says so quite strongly. There's going to be people who would love to see him down, but the voters love Peter and have always responded well to him. Now, number 2 in the race is Wes Moore. Wes is Wes likes to paint himself as a Baltimore guy who worked in New York. Okay. Wes is considered black, but he considers himself West Indian, which is a little bit different. He has a tendency to put down African Americans as they're the fault of all their problems. He wrote some books. I don't want to get into going through the books line by line, but there's some real questions about his respect for the African American family. Wes was head of the Robin Hood Foundation. Now, when he says he's a Baltimore guy, he lived in Baltimore until he was 4 years old. Then his parents moved to New York, and he went to private school. He's not exactly your average black guy from Baltimore. And he's trying to be your average black guy from Baltimore who is a big success. Moved to New York, went to public schools, did very well, has great accomplishments. He was head of the Robin Hood Foundation, which gave money to economically disadvantaged individuals in New York, only in New York, never in Maryland. There's no Robin Hood grants that ever came to Maryland. The only person who ever got money from Robin Hood in Maryland is Wes in form of his paycheck. It's a challenging thing. He's going to run as the black guy from Baltimore, and we'll see if he gets away with that. I have him as number 2 in the race. Okay. Number 3, Tom Perez is a little bit of a problem for himself. He's in a jam. He should be at the front of the pack, and he's slipping. He's slipping badly. Ever since he entered the race, he does worse and worse. Tom was a county councilman in Montgomery County. It's an important job, but he never had a statewide base. Then he ran for attorney general in 2006. And this is where it gets really interesting, because he got thrown off of the ballot for not being eligible to be attorney general. The person who threw him off the ballot is my number 5 pick, Doug Gansler. Okay. Tom never bothered to read the rules in the Constitution that described the qualifications to be attorney general. And come on. When you want to be the top law enforcement officer in the state of Maryland and you never read the Constitution, something's wrong. Doug Gansler is great at capitalizing on other people's weaknesses. The other thing that's troubling about Tom Perez is that he opened up the race by opening a 520c corporation. Now, most people don't know what a 527c is, so let me explain. It's dark money. It's untraceable political money. What he did was he created a fund that can take money from foreign nationals, that it can take money from corporations, that they don't have to account for where the money is used and where the money is spent. They don't have to account to anybody for anything. Now, since he formed the 527c, he's not allowed to have anything to do with the 527c, and they're not allowed to work together by federal law. But he founded it, he's created it, and he's working with it, which means that he's in violation of federal law governing political action committees. Under President Biden's Justice Department, it's not likely he's going to be prosecuted, but it is a consideration. Now, Tom doesn't do well with people. Tom does well with corporate fat cats and bosses. ever since he joined the race, he seems to be slipping. I would have put him 4 months ago. I would have said he and Peter were on top. Now I have to say Peter and Wes Moore are on top, and Tom Perez is slipping. Let's go to my number 4 pick, Rusher and Baker. Rusher and Baker's a good guy. Rusher and Baker was an honest county executive in Baltimore, not in Prince George's County, and he did a good job. He accomplished a lot for the county. The problem is that he's not known outside of his base. If he gets any votes, it's going to be heavily in Prince George's County because that's where he's from, and also some in Montgomery County because he's in the same media market. On top of that, we can anticipate that Ike Leggett, former county executive of Montgomery County, is going to support Rusher and Baker because he always has supported Rusher and Baker. So that's going to be a big deal. But outside of scratching for votes in Baltimore,
other than PG County and some part of Montgomery,
absolutely,
it will be a difficult task, right?
Okay.
All right.
Sorry about that. My mouth is getting dry.
No problem. So Barry, now we have got 3 minutes, and we need to cover like 4 more. All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Doug Gansler is former 2-time attorney general. He's got more scandal and more baggage than he knows what to do with. He says the voters don't care about that. I think we're going to have to see if the voters care about that. He was involved in an underage drinking scandal, a drug use scandal. He ordered his police driver to speed, and the police officer refused, and he ordered the police officer out of the car, and he drove the car with the lights and sirens on. He's a wild man. I mean, there's so many other things. Those are the top 5. Okay. Then we get into the next 4, and none broken out. None of them really showing any great potential. We've got, I'm going blank on their names. John Warren, who is a pretty good guy, and he's into evidence-based planning.
So in other words, Barry, I mean, they're very little known statewide, and name recognition will be an issue for most of them. That's
the
one
people
thing.
Don't know who they are.
Right. And
the bottom 4 are polling under 3%.
I see. Good. So if you have to sum up as of now, I mean, like almost 10 months away from the primary. So this is what your findings are, that Peter Francho is, you think, according to your analysis, should be at number 1, and Wes Moore is behind
number
him.
2. Yep.
With whatever challenges he has right now. Because honestly, I mean, when we travel, I mean, out of all 24 jurisdiction, people really have no idea about Wes Moore either, that who he is. So, and we don't see any ground game as of this moment. Maybe that's going to enhance. But he's still calling a lot of out-of-state people for fundraisers and things like that, and political contributions. That's another issue that is
He's
allowed.
doing his fundraising in the Hamptons, which is the wealthy tip of Long Island, and California, Silicon Valley, and Los Angeles. He's tapping out-of-state money. He's tapping hedge fund money. He's tapping big business money. He's not a man of the people. He's a man of the bosses.
Yeah, this is again in a serious trend, and then we need to be talking about all that. So in the final moment, any other comment that you want to add, Barry?
No, at this point, I think I'm pretty good with my top 5.
All right.
Somebody in the bottom 4 will probably break out and make some news, but none of them have broken out and made any news yet.
Well, Barry, thank you very much that you were able to join me. Next week, we will be talking to you about the race for the comptroller's office. So
that's a fun race.
Get yourself prepared for that. All right.
I am.
All right, Barry. Thank you very much. Like always.
Thank you, Shahab. It's a pleasure.
Grateful to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.